Hello friends, for the patent agent exam aspirants, how do you answer questions like whether algorithms are patentable? How do you draft claims for questions in which an algorithm method based invention is given? For the inventors, if you have got an invention which is algorithm based, how do you draft specifications which are as per the requirements of the newly issued CRI guidelines? To help you answer such questions and to help you build drafting strategies, and the ability to build good claims for grant of patent, then this video is for you. In this video, we are going to understand the patenting algorithm method based inventions requirements as per the CRI guidelines. Try to understand how to analyze the drafted claim and what is the shortfall, and better still, that once we have determined the shortfall, we are going to learn how to modify the set deficient claim so that it stands to meet the requirements of patentability as per the newly issued CRI guidelines. As you know that CRI guidelines, they which present a structured approach for determining any specification for the given patent as with respect to its patentability or its non-patentability with reference to section 3K. Now the section 3K primarily says that these four categories of the inventions, mathematical method, business method, algorithms, and computer programs per se, are non-patentable under the Indian Patents Act. So let's dive more deeper into it. What is an algorithm? Now, the ordinary dictionary definition is that algorithm is simply a set of rules that must be followed when solving a particular problem. But with respect to patentability, there are two conditions which are given for any statements to qualify as an algorithm. One is that they must have predefined instructions which could be in form of a series of step rules or procedures, and second is that there must be that those instructions must be bound by a methodology by which those instructions can be implemented. Now this methodology could be logical, arithmetic, computational, or anything else. So if these two conditions are satisfied, then only these statements are can be quantified as an algorithm. Now this algorithm, as we will just illustrate, that a simple algorithm can be prescribed in many different ways. For example, the simple algorithm of calculation of square roots can be defined if it is defined to be expressed as finite instructions. Then the first claim, the method for calculating square roots using binary search steps would suffice. At a slightly higher level, when you're wanting to use some kind of a recursive rule, then the claim could be expressed as a recursive computational method for converging towards the square root. And at a higher sophisticated level, when you are wanting to find the square root using a statistical model, then you see the illustration of the claim 3 here, a trained model applying statistical regression equation. So the idea by what we are wanting to say is that any algorithm can be expressed in different ways through in different ways through a claim. So how do you draft a claim is becomes very much important and is viable. So firstly, delving deeper into the algorithm, let us just see the two parts, instructions as well as methodology. Now here in first illustration, we have just marked the instructions, boil water. Now there is no methodology. These instructions are not bound by any kind of methodology. They are just simple statements. Likewise, the next illustration which we are showing, find the average of numbers by summing and dividing by the count. It is just a pure mathematical method. So standing alone, both statements would not qualify as per the definition of the algorithm. But if we bound together both the statements as well as methodology, then illustrations like this, given a data set then followed by four steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, with predefined finite instructions, then in that case it would qualify as an algorithm, but they would still be excluded from patentability. CRI guidelines have given us a methodology wherein any algorithm method based inventions can be analyzed for patentability in three-step procedure. Now in the very first step, it asks you to construe the substance, what this invention is really doing, substance of the invention, break the given claim into a series of sequential steps, and then determine the core, what problem this claim is solving and how it is solving. The step 2 is termed as the determination of enablement abstractness. It is nothing but you need to assess the series sequence of steps with reference to the core, whether they are just representing the element of abstractness or whether they can be technically enabled so as to provide a technical solution to a real world problem. So the two putting this test, there are only two possibilities, that the given statements are represent an abstract series of steps or they represent an enabled series of steps. So under step 3 is the concluding part. If the determination is with respect to the abstractness, then they would qualify as non-patentable. But if they are technically enabled, then it could the given claim could be potentially patentable. Now let us take a real example out there. For example is the method for cryptographic key generation. Now let us just take an overview of this invention. What does it do? It basically outputs a random pseudo-random number. But what is the input? Input is a seed value. Given a seed value, there is a permutation engine which is nothing but a series of finite instructions, a methodology which processes the seed value through a series of permutations to give you an output of a random number. So the given claim has been put out here. The method for generating pseudo number, it gives an input module which receives the seed value, a permutation engine which applies a series of permutations, and finally the output module which could be a simple display system. Now as per the methodology we just outlined, let us try to examine this. So step 1, construe the substance of the claimed invention and break the claim into series of steps. So what is the objective of this? This invention describes a method for generating pseudo-random numbers through steps of receiving a seed, first step, applying permutations and outputting numbers. So we break this thing into series of steps. Receiving seed value, input module does this, applies permutations to the seed, permutation engine does this, and finally it gives you the output, which is given by the output module. Now with this series of inventions, we try to assess the series of inventions to determine the core. So fundamentally, this is a method of generating numbers using mathematical operations. There isn't any mention of any technical linkage or usage. So this claim is nothing but it is a series of logical mathematical steps. Mathematical steps more because it is just an input which gets transformed to give you an output. So at the core, it is an algorithm for number generation. So putting through the determination of the enablement or abstractness test, we can see that the input module is configured to receive seed value, which is determined to be generic. There is no mention how seed is received. Then the permutation engine, as we had already mentioned, it is generating, it just considers of a mathematical method. There is no mention of how engine is configured. And finally the output module, which could be, as we mentioned, any display system. There is no mention of how the sequence of pseudo random numbers is derived. So the focus of this invention is on a mathematical act of permutation to derive random numbers, not on technical implementation. So with this, it becomes easier for us to conclude under step 3 that the focus of the claim is on mathematical act of permutation to derive random numbers, not on technical implementation. It is simply generating numbers without connecting that to that generation to any concrete technical application. So, this statement of the claim purely lacks technical enablement and remains an abstract algorithm. Hence, it would be excluded under section 3K. So, here we have just taken a claim and analyzed it completely by the methodology as prescribed under CRI guidelines to determine that it is non-patentable. But the question would arise in paper 2, the examiner could ask you that how you make it potentially patentable. So to make it potentially patentable, you need to do two things. Firstly, you have to remove the idea of abstractness from this, and you have to introduce the concept of technically enablement so that it provides you a real world solution. So we have given you an example claim. You can frame your own claims wherein you, we have mentioned, reduce the element of abstractness and increase the level of technical enablement. So in this case, we have used the algorithm which was represented by the claim to encrypt the data and transmit that encrypted packets on into some real-time system. So this claim would become the given claim which is presented here, a method for encrypting and transmitting data securely. This claim would be enabled with sufficient technical specifics and would possibly become potentially patentable in the eyes of the examiner of the patent office. So to answer questions like these and to build the competence of avoid making your algorithm based invention patentable, and with respect to questions in the patent office, we have brought in a book, Patenting Emerging Technologies from Algorithm to Quantum Inventions. This book does not really limit itself to explaining the law. It basically takes up multiple inventions on specific technologies, right from stretching from algorithm, blockchain inventions, quantum inventions, mathematical methods, and solve them thoroughly by examining the inventions based for these specific technologies. Going through this book, you will learn how to work around patentability challenges, more specifically how to work around the categorization under section 3K to answer questions of the patent office and build good claims to grant the scrutiny of the patent office with respect to your invention. This book will also help you learn to draft specifications for new emerging inventions. As we have already mentioned, it takes practical example of emerging technologies. Now, why this becomes important is because drafting specifications for these technologies, new era technologies, is altogether different the way specifications were for the traditional technologies. The criteria used to examine the traditional technologies for it does not really suffice when you are examining inventions based on these new emerging technologies, primarily because the basic structure, process, even the systems on which these emerging technologies are coming out is totally different with respect to the drafting technologies. So when you are going to draft specifications, it becomes very important how you describe these new era technologies, the do's and don'ts which must be taken care of, the pitfalls, the red flags which an examiner would look for when he is examining the new age technologies are very important both for the patent agent exam aspirants as well as the new inventors who are wanting to get the grant for their inventions. A lot of practical examples of such technologies have been taken in this book. This book further explains the CRI provisions. As already we have mentioned that it takes a lot of examples for the new age, many inventions of these new age technologies. provides practical drafting strategies to overcome section 3K, as we have highlighted their importance. And then it also discusses important case laws and current IPO practices. Using all the above, the book aims to bridge the understanding gap between technology and patent law. So, if you are a patent agent exam aspirant or a patent professional or an inventor, this book we may not remain only an optional reading. It could be a strategic asset for your professional success because it equips you to handle the new era technologies, which becomes very important when you are dealing with the patent office in this new era. This book is available on Amazon. You can search by title or the link is given in the description. If you really want to have clarity, confidence, and competence in patenting new age technologies or to answer questions for the invention based on these new era technologies, then this book belongs to your desk. And if you are wanting to build competence with confidence and clarity, then we ask you to remain with us in our journey of this playlist, wherein in with every video we are usually taking an invention based on a new technology. Going through our methodology, you will surely build competence and the confidence to handle both the questions as well as ability to identify the shortcomings in your claims and modify those claims accordingly so that they stand scrutiny of the patent office and meet the new age requirements as prescribed by the patent office. Thank you for your time.